Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining our second installment of the Road to Kearney webinars, our former summer associate panel. We have a great group of consultants on the phone today to share their summer experiences as well as what it's like to come back as a full-time consultant. Before we hand it over to Jess, I wanted to run through a few logistics for today. So as we go through the presentation, if you have any questions, feel free to chat them through the Q&A feature at the bottom right-hand corner of the screen and send them to Lauren Santamaro. She'll be collecting all of them and then feeding them through to our panelists at the end for our Q&A. And if we don't get to your question, please feel free to send it through to careers.mba@kearney.com, and we will get that answered for you. So with that, I will hand it over to Jess to walk through.
Hi, everyone. Hope you're all doing well today. Unfortunately, we can't see all of your wonderful faces, but I'm so glad that you were able to join to learn a little bit more about what it's like to be a summer associate at Kearney, as well as what it's like to be a full-time consultant on our teams. So if we go to the next page, we have a great group of speakers who will be on today. So we'll do a bit of introduction after I give a bit of a brief overview of, what to expect from your summer internship with Kearney and what it really means to be a Kearney consultant. If we go to the next page, great. So our agenda for today, I'll provide a really brief overview of our summer consultant program, talk a little bit about the specifics and nuances of what it means to be a Kearney summer intern. And then we'll have a bit of a panel discussion where we'll answer some of the burning questions that I'm sure many of you have in terms of, why did we join Kearney? What are some of the benefits of our organization? What are some of the key challenges that consultants face? And then we'll open up the floor for all of your questions. So really making sure we're giving you the opportunity to ask any questions you may have about consulting in general or more specifically Kearney. So really the summer internship program is really about providing a very hands-on immersive experience for summer associates. So I think the best way to think about our summer program is we're really throwing you in the fire. It's very much, a real consulting engagement that we would typically staff any full-time associate on, but you're a summer part-time intern. So really it's very much about giving you that opportunity to really understand, what does a real true life consulting engagement look like? I feel like many of you may kind of think of consulting as a lot of the case interviews that you've been practicing for recruiting, but we really want to provide you with that hands-on learning opportunity, as well as the right training opportunities in order for you to succeed. Another important aspect of the summer consultant program is really an opportunity for you to get to know Kearney a little bit better. So we'll have a number of events during the summer at the local and national level. Again, just to know your summer intern cohort. That'll be a lot of your lifelong kind of Kearney consultant friends throughout your time here, as well as to just learn more broadly about the firm at the national level. So the partners, principals, managers, that'll be part of your Kearney experience moving forward. So if we go to the next page, just to bring this to life to a little bit. So we have about a 10-week immersive summer consultant program. This is a high-level timeline of what to expect across those 4 weeks. So I'll just call out some of the best parts of what the summer consultant experience really is. So it starts with a really great onboarding and training program. So it's really about what are the right skills that you'll need to be successful as a consultant in order to really succeed in whatever role you're staffed in during your summertime. So after a couple of weeks of training, I think actually maybe just a week of training, you're staffed onto a project full time. So you'll, again, really be immersed in that project experience. You'll be working with your project team, likely another associate on the project or analyst and manager, and really just living the day-to-day experience that a typical consultant would have on any project experience. Another critical aspect of the Kearney summer program is really about learning about the Kearney culture. So I'm pretty sure if you've had any coffee chats with anyone from Kearney, they'll tell you the reason they came to Kearney and the reason they stay is the people and the culture. And really, we want you to experience that for yourself. So you can really see what we're talking about when we say, people at Kearney are real and they're relatable. We want you to live that experience for yourself. So we want to ensure that we're giving a lot of opportunities to meet other full-time consultants, really learn about what makes Kearney tick. A really great part of this is also, building culture within your cohort of other summer interns. So the recruiting team did an absolutely fantastic job this past summer of, really taking the in-person summer consultant experience and bringing it online. So one way they did that was, through these value-based cohorts, where taking our Kearney values of generosity, solidarity, passion, boldness, and really assigning each of the summer associates into one of those cohorts aligned to the values. They did, a step challenge. They had a lot of just ways to really build a lot of culture and engagement across the cohort. So I'll pause there. That's just kind of the nuts and bolts, the nitty-gritty of the summer associate experience. So we'd love to just kind of bring it to life a little bit more with a number of the panelists that we have today. So we'll start with just a brief introduction of all of the panelists. I'll go first. So my name is Jess Beidelman. I am a manager out of our New York office. I'm aligned to our leadership change and organization practice. Most of the projects I do at Kearney are, large-scale transformations, a lot of organizational strategy and design type of work. Prior to business school, I was a Teach for America alum. I taught for 2 years in Brownsville, Brooklyn, then worked at an education management company. Since business school, I've been with Kearney for about 2 years now. And I guess my fun fact here is during COVID, I relocated to the Jersey Shore, and I'm looking to spearhead a bit of a opening of a beach office post-COVID, because I think it'll do wonders for our work-life balance.
Is your office recruiting more members?
Definitely.
Hi, everyone. My name is Julius Morris. I'm an analytics associate based out of the Atlanta office. I started with Kearney in February, so the majority, all of my consulting experience full-time has been virtual, so hopefully you won't be in that situation. Since I started at the firm, I've done primarily sourcing work, some pretty cool internal sourcing to help with the COVID recovery plan, and most recently been working on indirect sourcing, which has taught me a lot very quickly. But happy to be here. Looking forward to answering questions. Oh, my fun fact is also that I've been dancing my whole life. And yeah, it's kind of my passion. It's my thing. So hopefully one of these events, if we get them back for the summer program, you'll be able to see some moves.
Or Julius, if we all just recruit down to that beach office with Jess, we can get it going, right?
No, sounds like a bad idea.
So I'm Kevin Berger. I'm an associate out of the Boston office. I actually summered with Julius. So I started at the firm in February of 2019, so I've been here for a little over a year and a half. I've been on 5 projects across 2 different clients. And similar to Jess, they've been large-scale transformations and a lot of growth strategy stuff, which has been super interesting. I'm aligned to the consumer and retail practice, so all the projects that even before I had aligned, all of my projects were in that practice, and so I just developed a sort of comfort and a good network there, and so I just recently aligned. And my fun fact is I was on a safari a couple Thanksgivings ago, and for the morning drive, we actually got out of the safari Jeep, and we had some coffee. A mother rhino and a baby or cub rhino started walking towards us, but they have poor eyesight, so they actually didn't see us until they got close enough to smell us. And the mom actually started to charge and then stopped. So it was a little heart racing incident there, but we escaped unscathed.
I guess I'm last. Hi, everyone. I'm Devakas. I'm a manager out of our New York office. I've been with Kearney since 2018. Prior to Kearney, I was an attorney working in an investment bank. Since joining Kearney, I've worked across practices, across functions and industries. Really been focused in leadership and change organizations, private equity, as well as digital transformation. Happy to talk about the range of experiences that I've had. My fun fact is a little less dangerous than Kevin's, but currently just been coming out to Taylor Swift lately for those quarantine vibes. Looking forward to talking with you guys today and answering any questions you have.
I love it. Also a big Taylor fan. So we have a bit of a few questions we'd like to run through with the panel, and then again, we'll open it up for those in the audience for Q&A. But the first question is for all the panelists. I just want to know, what's your main reason for joining Kearney?
I think you mentioned it already, and I could only just echo it. For me, it's the people and the culture, and to be honest, those summer intern events really swayed me. But I've really loved meeting everyone who's looked like me, who hasn't looked like me. There's been a lot of really great support since I've been here, especially this year. It's been a fairly trying year for everyone, and I think the firm's values have even come to life a lot more, just in how the firm has showed up to support its employees. And I got a glimpse of that in my summer, and I'm glad to see that even as a full-time, that same level of support, especially from the mental side, is there for the firm for a job that is so demanding.
Yeah, I think we can probably all echo Julius's comments on the people and the culture, as cliche as it sounds. So I won't bore anyone else to death, but one of the big deciding factors for me was actually Pearl Lab at Kearney, which is the Product Excellence and Renewal Lab. And so it's a design-driven, EBIT improvement focus of the firm where we actually look at how can we improve the design of products? How can we make it more profitable? How can we sort of build a case around consumer sentiment? So if we could look at any type of product, how can we analyze what consumers actually care about versus what they don't care about? And sort of how can we reallocate any of the cost that goes into products, features that consumers care less about, and really start to help implement around, okay, well, what do consumers care about but doesn't actually function that we can potentially gain market share? So it was a different spin and sort of perspective on consultant versus you going into the client side and working on a big, large-scale transformation and trying to redesign their sales org. It was really product-driven, but you still had to come up with, okay, I'm telling you that you need to change your product because X, Y, Z, and here's the implication. So you still needed to put the business case around it. It was just in a different sort of concept. And then, of course, my background prior to joining Kearney was engineering, so I've always been one to want to get hands-on and want to play with some gadgets. And so it sort of fit up my alley, and I knew Kearney would give me the opportunity to sort of explore it. So aside from the people and culture, Pearl Lab was a great thing that helped sway my decision.
Yeah, I'll start by echoing the same thing as the others, but people and culture is certainly one of the key drivers for me. I think, when I was having conversations, when I was considering where to intern over the summer, one of the things that I was told that I thought really exemplified my experience has been that we take our work seriously, but not ourselves. And I found that to be very, very true. Just everybody is very collegial and really invested in each other and brings their authentic self to the firm and to the work. Outside of the people and culture, I think what for me really spoke to me was how entrepreneurial the environment is. You'll see, straight from your first day on the internship, you'll have that opportunity for ownership of your work. And as you join the firm and get more involved and see the opportunities that are available to you, the firm, ownership and the opportunity to drive the direction of the firm from an early phase is certainly a part of that. And so I think that experience was what, brought me to the firm, and it has only been, proven out in my experiences.
Yeah, definitely. People and culture, the opportunity to steer the course of the firm definitely resonate with me too. So I'm curious to understand, what is one piece of advice that you would give first years that are, recruiting for their summer internship with Kearney or other firms? Kelly, why don't you go first, because it was furthest to go for you.
Sure. Yeah. No, I appreciate that. You're going to get a lot of advice, over these coming next few months. For me, I think the one piece of advice I would have is that the experience of consulting and being a consultant, you're constantly going to be pushed out of your comfort zone. So to the extent you have the ability to get used to that now in your recruiting process, you should do that. And what I mean by that is, I think when I was going through recruiting, it was very easy to get comfortable with a core group of other students that I worked with, whether it's for resumes or casing or otherwise. But where those real opportunities for growth and learning came from when I went outside of that opportunity and got different perspectives from other classmates who I hadn't necessarily interacted a ton with, alumni, consultants that you've networked with. Take advantage of those people that are in that more extended network. And I think you will really benefit from getting those different viewpoints and feedback sources in your preparation as you go through the recruiting process.
Cool. I can go next. I think all the advice Telly gave was pretty much spot on. For me, I think it ties back to the people and the culture. And I just like to sort of state that most consulting firms do the same work. So it's not like any of the consulting firms that you're going to go recruit at is going to say that, oh, we do this and Kearney doesn't do that, or any other competitor doesn't do that. What really I think separates the firms, it truly is the culture. And so I feel like a lot of times when at least when I was going through recruiting, a lot of my friends sort of undervalued how important the culture is. In a pre-COVID environment, I mean, the folks on your team you were spending more time with than your family or your significant other. And so really digging deep and seeing what's the culture of the firm and do you fit in and does the firm value the same values that you do? What's their take on all of these social injustices that's going on in the country and work-life balance? I think that means a lot. And that's really going to be the part that truly separates the firms apart from one another. And so mine would just be to make sure you do your due diligence and you're forming genuine bonds with the folks that you speak to. And it's not transactional, because if it's just a transactional, I want to speak to this person because they work at that firm, then I think a lot of that stuff might get swept under the rug and you might overlook it.
I have 3 pieces of advice for going back to recruiting. One would be to get clear on what you want. It's going to look different from the person next to you. 2 would be to follow your heart, not the herd. I remember in business school, everyone was just like herding one way. And I was like, what do I actually want and why do I want it? And getting clear on that, to my first point, was important. And number 3, take this as a time to interview us. I don't think oftentimes enough people are so focused on impressing us, which I think you want to put your best foot forward, but also take the time to ask the important questions for what matters to you. So what Kevin said.
Heart, not the herd. I'm gonna steal that one. So what do you wish you knew about Kearney prior to joining?
That I was never going to know everything. That even when I did a project and I was redoing it again for a different client, that there were still going to be many challenges I was going to face. I think as a type A person, that can sometimes be overwhelming, but I've learned to embrace it a little bit more. But initially that was like, I still don't know what's going on. But I also like that aspect of the job, that I'm always learning, always being challenged, and it doesn't get boring.
For sure.
That's actually the exact same thing I was going to say. So on the 5 projects I've done now, I think 3 have been fairly similar in terms of the overall scope that we were going to do. And I think sometimes what you can get caught up in is, to Julius's point, you might try to copy and paste and say, okay, I did something very similar on the project before. Let me try to sort of force fit it into what we're trying to do here. And it doesn't typically work that way. So I think it ties into that, how intellectually curious you have to be and sort of how fun it is, because every day is a new challenge. Even if you did something incredibly similar on the previous project, every day is a new challenge that you have to do new research on. You have to try to get smart on it before you go stand in front of a client and try to present something that you don't know and they're typically an expert in. And so, yeah, just echoing it's that I wouldn't know everything, and that I guess no 2 pieces of the puzzle are alike.
Yeah, kind of similarly, for me, what I wish I knew about Kearney prior to joining is that Kearney honestly is involved in so much across industries, across functions, on the cutting edge of technology, and across, everything from the diligence of a private equity company all the way to the integration, to the operations, to how everything's running, to the latest trends in agile and flexible supply chain, et cetera. Like, you can find something that is your thing here at Kearney, but finding that can be difficult from an outside perspective. So if you have interests, if you have areas that you're excited in, I really encourage doing that diligence, in advance, and making those authentic connections with people who are in those areas that you have those interests, because it's just going to make it more fulfilling for you as you learn about Kearney and what it's like being a consultant at the firm.
So let's transition a little bit to talk about your summer experience, because that is what is closest on the horizon for everyone on this call. So Kevin, why don't you kick us off? Tell us a little bit about your role in your summer project and the impact that you made as a summer associate.
Yeah, for sure. So Jess, when Jess had gone through the presentation, she said that the summer experience truly is an immersive experience, and I couldn't be any closer to the truth. So I just remember the first week went through training. The second week I was put on a project for a logistics company that I had no idea about, and we were trying to go through and figure out how can they grow to have similar revenue streams across a few different business units, and we ended up finding out that was actually impossible to do, and they were actually going to have to go out and acquire some smaller companies. And so it changed from sort of a internal growth strategy to, well, how can we actually go out and acquire something? So my experience started as I just went through and started doing some internal assessments in terms of, okay, here where we see some revenue gaps, but then quickly pivoted into, okay, now we need to go out and size the market and try to figure out who are the major competitors in this market, who are some smaller competitors, try to do any market research we can in terms of how are they owned, are they public, are they private, are they family owned, what would actually be a good business case for us to go tell a client that they need to go out and pursue them. So my responsibility really focused around sizing that market and then actually going in and trying to decide what companies would make the ideal candidate for our client to go out and purchase. And so, right from day one on the project, it was like 2 days before we had a steering committee meeting, and I was like thrust right into the fire to try to go out and start performing any market size. It's like a typical case, right? It's, okay, well, we know that there are this many companies and they operate in this many states, and so you sort of had to work backwards. But it was great. I had such a phenomenal team, and everyone from the partners to the associate that I was working directly with was very, very supportive. They understood I was in a job I didn't have before, working in an industry that I didn't have before, that I didn't know about, and my responsibilities were stuff that I never had to deal with. And so, yeah, the firm was just very, very supportive, connecting me with people that had expertise in this area, and I sort of just leveraged them moving forward. But no, it was a phenomenal project. It was great. We learned a ton. It was incredibly fast paced. Before you know it, it seemed like you're on a project for 3 days and you're at Learn About the Firm getting pretty crazy in New York City, and the summer is halfway done.
Great, thanks. Kelly, can you think back 3 years ago when we were summer interns? What were you doing?
Yeah, so my summer was a pretty unique experience. I actually had 2 projects, so I won't drown on and on about both of them, but they were 2 completely different projects. One was a growth strategy project for an apparel manufacturer, and there my responsibility was to do a competitive landscape analysis, which involved comparing individual SKUs, SKU size, mix, catalogs of the different competitors in the space, and running a customer survey and gathering feedbacks on the perceived image of the brand that we were working with. Was a really great experience. And then halfway through the summer, that project, wrapped up into its natural end. It was a shorter duration project. And I pivoted and was put on another project where there we were redesigning the way that a financial institution sourced its marketing materials. There, I served 2 functions. One was heavy analytics. There was a lot of change management required, which required a lot of buy-in from senior stakeholders and convincing people at our client that the direction that we were working on and going in was the right direction, which required a lot of reliance on the data that we were providing. So I was providing a lot of that underlying support. And then the other aspect of it was actually talking with the suppliers of the marketing materials, running, negotiations with these vendors in this space that I had not worked in before. But the team had the expectation that, like any consultant, you would get up to speed on it very, very fast in half the summer experience, which I had the opportunity to do. So it was a really great experience. That was very reflective of what it's like to be a consultant at Kearney.
Julius, tell us about your summer experience.
So for my summer, I was on a portfolio optimization project, essentially answering the question for the company, what SKUs do they need to keep on the shelves and which ones should they remove? The 2 categories that I focused on were feminine care and sun care. both categories very familiar with as a woman and as someone who's lived in Florida most of her life. So it's very interesting the entire summer to talk about tampons and pads and explaining to partners why there's so many different levels of absorbency and why we can't just like cut them out. So I was like, oh, this is my value add to the project. From like a sun care perspective, again, just like recognizing like the research behind it and working with R&D and marketing and understanding like what's costing money from a manufacturing standpoint. But what was probably most interesting was really understanding who calls the shots from the client side, like which group really determines what products can come off the shelf and go on. I had a great summer. I was on a very large project. Really great support. It was my first time intentionally going after 360 feedback. So every Friday I had a call. Not a call because we were in person. I had a meeting with my manager and he would give me feedback because the summer goes very quickly. So I didn't wait till midpoint. I just made sure to set up those recurring times. And he also gave me a chance to say, like, I could also do better with this type of support. So I think Kearney in general has really been fairly receptive to that level of communication back and forth.
Great, thank you. So let's do a quick rapid fire round in the same order. Favorite memory from your summer experience? Kev, you're first.
Favorite summary has got to be to learn about the firm, right?
And you guys can't repeat it. You have to think of a new one if that was going to be yours.
Oh, I'm lucky I went first then. Learn about the firm, not only for the simple fact that all of the interns come together for the first time really since the training, but by then you're already midway through, so you've probably already had Friday touch points with all of the other interns. You've developed a close bond with them. So everyone's a lot cooler. You're not sort of stepping into a job for the first time and not knowing anyone. But then everything that the firm does around it just to make sure you feel supported. There are seminars and breakout sessions you can go to learn about the different practices, talk to the different partners involved, global leads for this practice or that practice. It really is a great time. And then, of course, right, like you're in New York City for a weekend, you're hanging out, you go do a cooking class, and everything that you can imagine comes with being in New York City. So that's probably for sure the favorite memory.
That's great. I'll say a different one since we have to. For me, I think back and there was just a point a few weeks in where you're just starting to get comfortable and you're starting to feel really a part of the team. I just remember we had a really hard day at the client site, pretty long hours, but then we all went out as a team and had a great team dinner, and it was just a good opportunity to kind of let off some steam after the end of a long day, get to know each other on a personal level and get professional guidance. And that kind of initial experience just, solidified the team for the rest of the project. And looking back on it, as I think about it, some of those people that were, on that team are still people that I rely on and depend on a consistent basis at the firm going forward. And, I'm thankful for that kind of original experience in team dinner that really set that foundation.
During my summer internship, we had social events. What I loved about my team is they were pretty open to when I said, can we do a social event that didn't have liquor and food? So there were two interns on the project, and so we made all the social events. They have to be some type of activity. So we did in Orange Theory, we did salsa dancing. It was our chance to interact with each other and just to do something different. And I was pretty surprised at how open the team was, especially when it came time for Orange Theory. People are very in shape here, and I was happy to step it up.
Nice. Great. So I feel like a number of our panelists have talked about learn about the firm, which I mentioned briefly. So learn about the firm in our, pre-COVID world was about bringing all the interns across the Americas together to one place. I think typically New York City, to really meet each other, to learn more about the firm, as you can imagine the name. But Emily, maybe you could just talk a little bit about, what did learn about the firm look like this past summer in this, new virtual world?
Sure, happy to. So I'm Emily. I introduced myself at the beginning of the webinar, but I also lead our summer program. So had the fun job of kind of redesigning it this year, which actually brought a lot of new, fun and creative events to the table. So this year, Learn About the Firm, we divided all of the interns into different cohorts named after our values, and each cohort presented a kind of like some sort of overview of what that value means to the firm, as well as an event that kind of coincided with it. So for example, boldness, they did a little presentation on what boldness means. And then actually all of our interns did a talent show. So people submitted themselves juggling or playing the piano or doing yoga, and we did that all virtually. So it was a very fun way to like get to know people's secret talents across the firm. So that was kind of like the fun aspect. And then we also did a competition, a little friendly competition between all the cohorts. And there were different points that you could earn throughout the summer, and everyone the winning cohort got a gift at the end of the summer. So not as fun as LAF, of course, but because, as Kevin mentioned, it's pretty hard to beat, but we really did try to make sure that you got to learn about the firm as well as had a little fun throughout the summer.
Great. Thanks, Emily. So let's talk a little bit more about, kind of that transition from, being a summer consultant to working here full time. I think, the question that I get all the time is, tell me about work-life balance. So can you talk a little bit about how you've managed work-life balance, how you think about that question, and how Kearney supports you on that front, either, during COVID or just generally? So why don't we start with you?
Yeah, I think we're still figuring it out. I think everyone in the world is still figuring it out. If they've got it right, please send them our way. What I appreciate about Kearney is that they acknowledge the work-life balance has shifted and that consultants need support. So we have these things called WorkSmart Charters that were just recently rebranded to really the purpose of the charters are to, at the beginning of each project, set aside what are going to be the ways of working. So if someone has a kids soccer team meeting on Tuesday evenings, like we try to be respectful and not schedule any meetings there, or if we're going to block off some time for dinner in our respective time zones, we'll set those out at the top of the meetings projects. I think we're still trying to figure it out. I personally haven't figured it out, so I'll be curious to hear what the rest of the panel says. But I have found that my project has generally been fairly receptive when I have said, like, I need a moment and I need a break, or can we end this meeting early? I haven't left the computer in 2 hours. But it's really a matter of speaking up. And I also recognize that I am a little bit more vocal about my needs than some people might feel comfortable with. But Kearney has always created a space where if you need support, if you say it, they will help.
I can go next. I think the key point that Julius brought up is being vocal. So I, like her, am pretty vocal. And so even when we were on the road, I would always talk to the managers and the team and say, hey, like, we need to once a week or once every other week, we need to just have some time aside where we can go rock climbing or indoor rock climbing. We can go do something fun to sort of decompress and get away from the grind of consulting. In COVID, yeah, I mean, Julius is spot on. It's completely changed, and I think we're all still trying to work through it. But the key is to be vocal. And so at some points during the days, I have 2 nieces that I help babysit. And so I just make it very clear with the team on, hey, due to the circumstances for this time period, I'll be away from my computer. I'll work to get anything tidied up before that time comes or after if it's not urgent. But it really comes up with being vocal. My team is sort of spread across the country in different time zones. And so while my day starts pretty early, folks who are a few hours behind tend to send emails late and send requests pretty late. And I think we just need to learn to be a little more vocal and say, hey, like, I'm logging off on this time unless it's absolutely critical to continue working. The biggest aspect is the project teams, I would hope, all of them, I know mine for sure, here in Julius's, and I'm sure all of them are receptive to understanding everyone comes from a different walk of life. Everyone's situation at home is different. And so the firm really does listen to, okay, well, how can we make your life easier? Because it hasn't gotten easier with the whole work from home situation.
Yeah, I think in the pre-COVID times, your day as a consultant had natural breaks or ebbs and flows, which resulted around different travel times or having to go and get meals while you're at the client site, et cetera. And that, doesn't necessarily exist in the current format of being a consultant. So being vocal about, what your needs are in your home environment is a critical component, like has been mentioned. For me, what that means, I have a high energy dog. It's a scent hound. And I live in a small New York City apartment. So he, requires a certain amount of attention. It's going to happen at certain points in time during the day, no matter what. So I have to, either block off times in my calendar and be proactive about that and say, these are the times that I need. And if emergencies come up, emergencies come up. I think it's important also to make sure you're taking those mental breaks, whatever that consists of for you, whether that's walking your dog or doing yoga or, cooking meals, whatever it is. It's important to, carve out those times in order to do what it is that you need to do. The one thing I'll say is that's one of the advantages, truthfully, of consulting is two things. One, you're generally going to work on teams that are comparatively smaller, nimble, a manager, a few associates, a few analysts. It's like your typical day-to-day working team. And so you have a lot of control in that environment over your time. So you should take advantage of that. The other thing is, by nature, consulting, you're going to work on different teams and you'll have different experiences and different projects with different demands. It behooves you in your career to continuously learn what works best for you in each of these different environments and these different teams and pick up those best practices and bring those along with you and teach your new team members what it is that works for you. That's where you'll have the most success long term is defining what works for you and carrying along and teaching others.
Yeah, I think one thing that really resonated with me is this idea of needing to vocalize your needs because, as I think about, I vocalize my needs to partners all the time. I need to be offline at this time. I'm not going to be able to get this done today. I'll work on it tomorrow. 9 times out of 10, it's like, yeah, of course, no worries. I assumed you would do it when it made sense for you. And then I think separately, like as a manager, I can't read the minds of my team, right? Like I have no idea if someone prefers to work late or wants to wake up early or, how they want to structure their day. So I personally really appreciate when, analysts or associates I'm working with vocalize like, I'm happy to work on it. I have these 3 other things I'm working on. Like, which should I prioritize? So I think it's really about having that sense of open communication. And what I like about Kearney is that I feel like a lot of those structures are in place and people are generally open and fine with when you come up and say, it's not going to work for me to get this done by tonight, but like, here's my plan and how I think we can work around it. And again, 9.5 times out of 10, like that's a fine solution. You're able to move forward. So just a reminder to everyone, put in any of your Q&As and we'll save some time at the end to answer your specific questions. But in the meantime, I'd love to hear a little bit about, how do you think about how the full-time experience is either, compare it to your time during the summer? Is it different? Is it the same? What are some of the key areas that you think are important to touch upon there?
Right. I think coming into the summer, I'm like, all right, in 3 months, I'm back to traveling the world again, wherever I want in business school. This is more of like a long-term shot here, building networks, connecting with folks, and this year especially has been a little different, probably better for me as a new hire because I've been able to meet people by nature of the virtual environment. More people are accessible than probably would have been if we were in person. Because a lot more events have gone online. I have to think about that a little bit more. Those are my initial thoughts.
Before you answer your question, I realized that I totally messed up and thought we had 15 more minutes. So I'll open it up to the Q&A I'm the worst moderator. Sorry. Emily, what are some of the questions we've been getting?
Sure. I actually think throughout the panel we've answered a good number of them, but one that stood out was, I guess, how is training and development of interns as well as associates when you come back? I guess, could you share some examples of what you went through? Or how you thought you prepared you?
I think the best training is on the job training. So typically, when you come back as full time, when you're a summer, you have the very first week of training, and then you're sort of armed with a network that you can always reach out to and all the resources you would need to try to find stuff and help navigate at least through those 9 or 10 weeks. When you come back full time, you're obviously put back on a project. Then you go through similar trainings. You have all the online resources, and then there's eventually the experience forum where, at least pre-COVID, all of the folks who started around the same time will be flown somewhere, and you'd actually go through a week of training, again in person, and sort of take it a level deeper. So number one, you're building your network, but number two, you're actually starting to think of, okay, it's not just a short 9-week sprint so that I can hopefully get an offer to come back. Now it's, okay, what is the best development going to be? What are some things that interest me at work that I truly want to start to follow? What's a passion of mine and things like that? Just helps you come back with a completely different mindset. But yeah, I mean, there's always available resources that you can tap into to start to fill any gaps that you have. It's never like you're sort of left out stranded and you have to figure it out on your own.
And Strategic Ops on top of that has 2 more additional weeks of training on a lot of the more technical aspects.
I didn't know that.
Perfect. Yeah, I think they have a couple extra days of training. Okay. I would love to know more about how the different offices get involved in their local communities. Julie Sartelli?
I love my office. Atlanta was a good choice for me. It's small. It's intimate. Pretty much everyone knows everyone. We've had several social distance picnics. A lot of what's been going on lately, there's been a lot of support to local nonprofit organizations. United Negro College Fund, we did a walk with them recently, and there's been expressed interest in how do we get more involved in the voting this year and like supporting different polling locations. So we did a whole presentation a few weeks back on how to apply to be a poll worker in the different counties in the Atlanta area. I found it to be, it's pretty localized. We have Atlanta office meetings. Most offices have office meetings. So Atlanta's a good choice. I like it to be intimate, but feel free to come on down too.
Great.
Great.
Yeah, you go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Oh, no, I just realized we're over time. So in the interest of everybody's time, feel free to send through any unanswered questions to careers.mba@kearney.com, and we'll get those answered for you. They come straight to our recruiting team, so we'll get them answered or delivered out to who they need to be. So I just wanted to run through the dates for upcoming webinars. We have a diversity and inclusion one on the 6th, social impact, as well as 2 case and interview prep webinars as we head into the end of the year. But I just wanted to say thank you guys so much for joining today, and thank you so much to our panelists for sharing all their insights on the summer and coming back full time. I'm sure everyone appreciated it. And with that, everyone have a great Friday and enjoy the weekend.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.